watch a lot of videos. I like to saturate with things that give meaning to the moment. So I watch a lot of videos of people who are dying or have cancer, or I watch a lot of near-death experience videos, things that exist on that edge that have you appreciate life more. I followed a woman on Instagram. She had stage 4 cancer. And so I'd watch her every day and she would just talk about her experience. And I would be so deeply moved because you really only get to have that experience personally, one of, you know, being in the throes of death and getting to watch all of the experiences, the denial, the hope, the conversations with her kids, everything was so powerful. So I thought not everyone gets to have the experience of being indicted and going to trial. And it's a profound experience. Is anything that pushes you to your limits as a human being, and having the question of your freedom, you know, be in question, has a compression that can either be torment or can be something that awakens a depth of understanding. And from the day I got canceled 7 years ago in an article, and then 2 weeks or so later saw that I was being investigated, I made a determination that I was going to make this an initiation. You know, my life has been much about entering into high intensity terrains. You know, nobody determines that they're going to not just be a proponent of women's liberation, but women's liberation through sexuality, and to not just liberate women through sexuality, but to liberate sexuality itself. You know, it's definitely in the shackles of, you know, porn, accommodation, procreation, recreation, and violation. It's usually how I put it. So it's in its own shackles. And so we don't have any idea really what sexuality itself is. And then if you don't have any idea of what it is, then it's very difficult to know how to use the most powerful force in human biology for purposes of good. You know, how do you isolate the force itself and use it? And that was my question. But you enter the world, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen these, but this is very much how I feel in court. You enter the world, and you know, I used to just say, oh, people would say, what do you do? I teach about liberation through sexuality. And I can just tell you immediately, the person was no longer talking to me more often than not. Often what they were talking to was a kind of Catholic confessor is who they thought, you know, well, this one time, you'd be like, okay. And but what you discover is how much projection we have onto sexuality itself. And then the people who dare say that they are inhabitants of this region of consciousness. And so some know, some don't. I studied clitoral stroking for many years, and I have a seminal story where I was getting ready to do a demonstration of a woman in orgasm for 1 hour. That's your graduation. That's your PhD after many years of studying. Not climax, a state of consciousness. It's basically like, can you maintain what's called samadhi or flow or being in the zone in a high altitude? Like, you know, I don't know that it's easy to do it in a cave, but it's a different experience than doing it in front of a room full of people, to remain that open, that vulnerable. And I was moved by the experience of going to my first demonstration of being in a room where a woman was doing this. And there were 2 experiences. So here she is, she's on a table and she's naked and she's being stroked in front of like a room like this of people. And there's no theater, there's no drama, there's not even movement. She's actually moving or shifting less than I am. And having more of an impact than I had ever seen any woman have. So she's being stroked, and as she's being stroked, everyone in the room, everyone was moving like this in unison, and I realized she's moving an entire room full of people doing nothing. And so it was my first glimpse of a totally different type of power. But more than that, what I realized was how innocent it was, how strangely virginal it was, how pure it was, how not dirty it was. And I had this moment, it was this moment of grief where I realized, oh, all of that I do, that way that I denigrate sexuality, like even like ways that I as a woman had learned to use it or dismiss it, if I felt arousal, dismiss it, or subtly compete with other women around, all of the things that we have around it, or all of the ideas about who men were around sexuality. It came really clear. Elizabeth Gilbert once said, she was talking about how tofu doesn't have any flavor. It takes on the flavor of whatever you put on it. And that is very much how, in that moment of that demo, that's very much how I saw sexuality. I understood it as this clear, pure, very strong force. And that force took on whatever ideas or projections I put on it. And so it was powerful because I realized it was a moment of realizing, oh, there is no inherent value in this that's so laden with charge and values and ideas that we have. And then there was a moment of, it was almost like an internal apology to sexuality itself, that I had projected all of these ideas onto it. And at that point, I was so deeply moved by the experience of seeing the demo that I determined that I wanted to do the same. When I determined I wanted to do the same, I studied basically what we call the orgasm monastery. Prior to this, I wanted to be a Zen nun. So I have a very rigorous monastic mind. And so then I applied that to my studies, and a lot of practice for many, many years to prepare for this experience, to where you can have equal, simultaneous attention, steady and stable without any intermittent sparks. So you're just pure attention for an hour straight with, high arousal experience. And I was getting ready to graduate, and I had studied with a teacher. I was getting ready to graduate. And I just had this moment, I had probably, I don't know. I don't know how many hours you would have in nearly 7 years daily practice, a greater portion of the day, but however many hours that was. And I had this, one of those moments where it's the small, quiet, still quiet voice inside. It isn't flashy. It isn't you making up your own ideas. And I just heard very simply, I'm a free woman. And at that moment, everything in my life began to organize around freedom. I was very clear that that was going to be the organizing principle. It wasn't going to be any identity whatsoever. It was going to be that. So as a result, I think what's happened is there are a few foundational ideas of the organization that I founded, One Taste. Once you've had one taste of the divine, nothing else will do. You'll do anything to get it. But the really foundational idea is unconditional freedom is freedom in all conditions. Unconditional freedom is freedom in all conditions, which sounds, it's a little bit too catchy because because if you've determined that you want unconditional freedom, then life is more than happy to deliver all conditions. And so I was debating if I was going to say this part, but I'm going to, because much of what I wanted, why I wanted to do this today is, I'm Sicilian. Sicilians, when they have transitional experiences, we'll say. The jury is deliberating. I would consider that a transitional experience. We gather. That's just what we do. We don't even have to like each other. We can be arguing. We gather, we eat, we talk a lot, we argue, we make up, we go home. Like it's something like that. You know, a lot of my family would drink a lot of wine while we were doing it, which made a lot more arguing and a lot more making up. And so I just realized, oh, that's what I do. This morning I just woke up and had the thought, that's what I do. That's what we'll do today, to walk through this part of it too. You know, as I said, I made the decision the minute after I was canceled, that this was going to be an initiation, and it has been an initiation. Just I wrote to my dear Drupon. And I said, I don't know how I would describe it other than mythological. To have the foundation of your life be unconditional freedom, and then to be in a courtroom with this central question about your freedom, be the reason that you're in there, and then to have everything that I taught be about freedom. And then to have that, I would say, you know, this is me, but I'm accurate, mischaracterized. And so that whole experience, but then also, you know, I wanted to say thank you. That's what it boils down to. I have had 4 weeks of 5 weeks. Of a strength that I could only have if I were bolstered and cared for and loved, you know, by a very unlikely group of people sometimes. And so not everyone has been in the courtroom, but some who may have heard that Caravan Inc. is mentioned often. That was the holding company for our company. And it was, when I say it's mythological, I'll give you a few examples. So this was the part I was debating if I was going to say, but I'm going to say it because I didn't come this far to not say everything. One of the reasons that I sold the company was I wanted to be able to tell the truth at the level that I knew it to be, in a way that didn't jeopardize anybody. Because there are certain, you know, when you say the truth, as you know, you can be seen as a provocateur, we'll say. Well, even though I don't intend to be, that's never been my intent at all. You know, if I had it my way, I would have just been smoking pot and like reading some Alan Watts or something. But you know, I was, Jacques Cousteau said, you can't be deeply or profoundly impacted by something and not share it with other people. And you get organized by the thing that changed your life. And I looked at the fine print on the contract, but I didn't think they'd hold me to it. Oh no! When I said, when I first saw what was available in Ohm, when I first saw what was available in the demo, and I saw this woman with this totally different type of power from anything I had ever seen. It wasn't bombastic. It wasn't sort of like, what is that? Boss bitch. It wasn't, you know, sort of like vixen power. It was just power. It was power that was like gravity that moved everything around it without exerting any force. And I wanted that power. And so I said yes. And so then I was given that. And then it's almost like when you live in a neighborhood and everyone pays to send you to college to be a doctor, then you come back and you're the doctor, you know, and you share what you were given, and under any conditions. And I've said this since the beginning. When I decided to make this an initiation, I decided that every single element of, we'll say, being canceled, every element of being indicted, every element would be used for the purpose of what I was doing anyway. You know, okay, so here we are, and now I'm going through this particular experience. How do we use this in service to the spreading of, you know, liberation in the world, specifically women's liberation, specifically through the practice of Om? That was my question. And in the ways that we do it, like we're a theatrical people. We are not, you know, and we like good food. Yi has been cooking us. We have incredible food on the, you know, during lunch, and tend to the attorneys. And I wanted to even go through court in a feminine way. And so it's been and in a way that had the quality of what I aim to bring, which can be described as flow, right? So one of the things that they're discovering in science, finally, is that everything that we know about consciousness and trauma and the like is backward. What we have is turn the volume down and then build a mind, this is called mindfulness, that is capable of being with sort of low volume experiences. And then what they're discovering, primarily through psychedelic research, is that there's a valence, and you have to turn up the arousal, break through the valence of good and bad, so that you get to make it to your own story. And you get to determine your reality. I brought a few favorite quotes. Viktor Frankl is one of them. I don't know if you know who he is, but psychotherapist who went through the Holocaust and had incredible, you know, sometimes people, they transmit peace before any words. And that's my experience of him. And so he said, the last of human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of conditions. And I feel like he has the cred to be able to say that. The last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of conditions, to choose one's own way. And there were always choices to make. Every day, every hour offered the opportunity to make a decision. And then yeah, that's good. And so so when I talk about unconditional freedom is freedom in all conditions, it's actually a very it has a subtle meaning in that there's a humility that's required that doesn't try to constantly push or overcome conditions or force them to be something other than they are. You work with your own mind and your capacity to choose one's attitude. That's the power that we have, is we get to choose how we experience what we experience, as far as I'm concerned. And so I decided that this experience was going to be a mythological or epic experience. So back to my caravan story. So many, many years ago, I did psychedelics, and there you go, there it is. And I did a deep dive in psychedelics. I did a podcast with a woman, and she said, "You seem to do everything religiously." And I said, "Yes, except for religion." No, joking. I actually even do religion religiously. So, but I do. I think that's the quality that we can bring to life, and then everything is drenched with meaning. And then that meaning brings the aliveness that we're looking for, and the sufficiency that we're fundamentally lacking when we're lacking. And so I did psychedelics, and Van Morrison's song Caravan was on. And I had this vision of all of these people. You know, I was lying there. I had this vision of all of these people coming over this mountain and down into this valley, and everyone was dancing. It was all of my friends, and it was wonderful. And then all of a sudden, all of these other people came, and it was everyone I thought of as my adversary, and they were down in, and then all of these other people came who were just strangers, people I had glimpsed at the supermarket, and it was just filled with this kind of world party. And then it hit me, in the end we're all friends. And you know, Ram Dass said we're all just walking each other home. And then our friend Drupan's and my friend Lama Glenn says like drunken sailors. And so, but we are, I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to in my mind. And so so in terms of the mythological aspect, I'm there in court, and you know, my former business partner is there, and we're talking about Caravan Inc. And there's an experience of all of these people, adversaries, strangers, and friends, and in one room all together. And then the experience of what I consider a kind of freedom, and that's to see people beyond their roles, and to be a person beyond her own role. Oh, so I was going to tell you about the mischaracterizations. Yes, I was. Because you know, I hear my work being described, and we will say it is not a remote facsimile of what I teach. And the experience is, it has been extraordinarily profound. You know, when I answer people, because people say, "How are you doing?" I'll say, you know, on the kind of on the mythological front, this is how I'm doing, you know, and then on the physical, or, you know, everyday front, how I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of Tums. And, you know, and my chiropractor is very familiar with me at this point, because, you know, I have contorted my body into ways unimaginable. But primarily what happens is, what's heartbreaking to me is that something that I've seen, I'll just speak for myself. I won't speak for the hundreds of thousands of people. No, I'll speak for myself. You know, something that gave me a tremendous amount of space, and, you know, space feels like freedom, and freedom, let me see what I want to say there. Freedom gives you room to sense your own wisdom. And so to me, there's nothing more precious than what was given. And then to hear it represented as it is, I understand everyone is welcome, because everyone's free to see it how they see it. But it's heartbreaking, because I think it's like there's a medicine. And if it's presented as a poison, then people won't be able to take it. That's my feeling. But this is what it feels like. I don't know if you've ever seen these on Instagram. This is my Instagram wisdom. I'm going to. But so they had AI do someone's obituary. And so it says, Brenda Trent retired from living at the age of old, surrounded by family and natural causes. A librarian from birth, Brenda was an avid collector of dust. She had a sweet heart and married her high school. She loved having hobbies and helping her sons to be disadvantaged youths. She had no horses, but thought she did. The church gave her a choir because she sang like a bird and looked like a bird, and Brenda was a bird. So when I'm hearing, you know, what I originally said come back to me, that's kind of what it sounds like. That's really not what I was talking about at all. And you know, but what has happened in this, and one of the reasons really why I wanted to do this talk, is so that in the same way that woman was generous enough, not that I'm so generous, but the woman was generous enough to do the daily videos of what it was like to be in the throes of dying, so that I could have a different view of what death could be, because it was actually so beautiful how she lived through it. Even as she broke down in tears, she presented all of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And this kind of reified idea of dying as something that you want to avoid at all costs, that softened, and I could experience it differently. So then I thought, okay, I'll present as much of that as I can of what it's like to be indicted. And indicted really, I would say, around your deepest beliefs. And what's that like, you know? And I can tell you that one of the most powerful parts is that what it does is it attracts people, I often say, with eyes to see. And what do they see? I think they're people who organize their lives around freedom. And it's just, I think, a different class of people, because on this caravan, there have been, as I said, really, really the most unlikely suspects, which sounds dangerous now to say unlikely suspects, but like we have a very hardcore DC evangelical that sends us scripture pretty often and prays for us regularly while we're, in court. And at the same time, we have this woman, her name's Amy. She's the editor of this magazine, Revolver, that just, she is a freedom fighter. And so she's organized by this freedom and saw that in us, even though she's a very conservative person. And here we are, these San Francisco clit stroking weirdos, but she could see that we cared fundamentally about the same thing, no matter how it was dressed, no matter how different it looked, or my or Topeka, I had worked with Topeka. We do something called Unconditional Freedom Project, where we turn prisons into monasteries, and that's really where we came to meet. But by the time we actually met in person, I had been indicted and she had been in prison for 12 years. And this is an experience that you don't just share with everyone. And there's something that you can just look at. You can look at somebody who's been indicted and you have a different sort of knowing. And I had that with her. And then getting to have this, this experience with such a profound, she's, human being, and social justice is, it's life altering. And then, and then you have, like, we sit in court and there are people's parents and who I mean, this might take it a little far, but I feel adopted, and held in love. And then, and then people's kids are in court. And some of you may know I did a project, Unconditional Sex, because unconditional sex is sex in all conditions. I did this project. Somebody who I met in that experience was in court. Just old timers, people who I hadn't seen for 15 years in the beginning of One Taste are there supporting. And then, and then new people just from Instagram who had only known me on Instagram were there. And then, so it's this really interesting train of people who have joined. And I feel like I have the honor of being a symbol for some people around the ideas of female sexuality, liberation, and freedom. So I get to, if I say this every day at some point, if this weren't my life, it would be amazing. Because where I'm sitting, I get to see a part of the world that so few people get to see. And it has been a profound experience of disillusionment. And one of the stories that I tell is, many years ago, I met a tantric Buddhist, and he said, I was in a heartbreak, and he said, "I wish you much disillusionment." And I didn't like that he said that. I actually wanted him to take care of me in that moment with all of my pain, And then I came to understand that the greatest thing we can experience is disillusionment, the clearing of the eyes of dust so that you can see things exactly as they are without any projection on them, hope or fear, absent of hope or fear, just how are things? Because that's how you get to be intimate. And so my promise to myself was that I'd enter every morning into the courtroom and be intimate with the room. And, greed, hatred, and delusion. So there's clinging, rejecting, and ignoring is how I would put it. And so there's a way I just want to, cling to my attorney and my friends for dear life. There's a way that I want to reject every single thing the prosecution is doing. And there's a way that I just want to ignore everything that's going on. And so to not be gripped by those three tendencies, to actually sit open and to experience it, has been, I've learned so much. I've learned, I feel like I've grown up in a way where I do often say, I didn't know you could do that. I also used to say that, the only thing that I bow to is free will. But I would say, actually, I bow to free will and I bow to the expression of genius, because I think that, in a Jungian way, that is the divine, and that's the numinous, that's the making the impossible possible is what I think. And so when I see poor play and cheating, I don't like that, but so it is. But then I also get to have, I get to have my attorney, Jennifer Bonjean, and when you're doing your karmic accounting, sometimes you can't do it, or I can't do it based on my conditions. Because if I were to just say, oh, I'm indicted, that looks like I have terrible karma. But if I'm indicted and my stable, basic state of mind is one of peace and the capacity to have attention on other people, and I get to encounter unbelievable generosity, unfathomable generosity is what I've gotten to encounter, and genius and care. And I get to have an experience that not many human beings will get to have in this lifetime. And I get to live in a state of optionality, and which is very similar to equanimity, right? So optionality is, I know in the bottom of my heart that no matter what happens, first of all, I'll be okay. Secondly, that there may be a momentary interruption, but I will continue what I started to do, and will die doing. And that brings about a kind of sanctuary that I haven't always known in this life. There's a way that I was just describing it this morning, like it's like having a house, and you still know it's raining, you still know there's thunder, you can still jump when there's thunder, or you can thrill when there's lightning. There's a whole, you aren't separate from the experience necessarily, but there's a kind of protection. And so that, to me, if we're looking at karma, that's the highest karma, to get to live in that state. And when I made the foundation of One Taste, unconditional freedom is freedom in all conditions, that is because that's the only way that you can be what's called a bodhisattva. So a bodhisattva is a person who's agreed to get out of suffering, causes of suffering, and help others get out of suffering. Well, if my attention is on myself, because I can't manage my internal state, then my attention can't be on you. And so the greatest blessing is to have some kind of sanctuary. So when I go in the morning, if you ever see me there, you'll probably notice that the minute I walk in, I try to I pick up my malas And I start doing what's called taras. So Tara mantra. And you just imagine the first Tara is white Tara, and then it goes like this. Second is yellow. Third is red, blue, green. And so that's peace, increase, power, wrath, and action. And then you have these flowers around them, and then you have a copper piece around them. And I'm telling you this because you create your own refuge inside of it. That becomes what you sit inside of for the rest of the day, is the vision of that. And so that's the first thing I start with. And then from there, I listen to a very interesting tale of, and I watch, I look at, for example, everything, as I said, everything I do is organized around freedom. So there's this expression in the gay community called gaydar. And gaydar is when you're walking and somebody does, that's one of ours. That's one of ours. That's one of ours. And so there's a way that I have a freedom dar. And that's where I can tell, oh, this person looks so very different, but they're organized by the same things. And we're kind of defined by the fact that we're for everyone. People who are free like free people, not necessarily because we're benevolent, but because we like an open highway, we'll say. And we don't like a lot of traffic. So the more people are free, the more flow happens in the world. So you want everyone to be free. And so you aren't necessarily defined then by the role. And one of the teachings that has been just so horrifically mischaracterized is the teaching around identity. And it's spoken of in the courtroom specifically around victim identity, but it's identity period is what I was talking about. So, identity is suffering. They are synonymous. And I thought of a good, normal way to explain it so that it might be heard. So because I was watching this mother with her child while I was pondering this, and I was looking at how beautiful they were together, how they were in their own world, and she was totally absorbed in the experience of being with this child. And then the child just started punching her. And then I noticed like how infuriated she was, but still in the experience of mothering. And then from inside of that experience, just the world of it. And I thought, okay, so that is that's the experience of being a mother. Now there's an identity of being a mother, and the identity of being a mother comes with expectations and demands that are put on you that aren't necessarily linked to the intimacy of being a mother. So if you're a mother, you're not supposed to. I remember these Hollywood starlets would go out drinking. Could you believe a mother would do this? Or, or wear too short a skirt. Mothers shouldn't do that. Or they should always be available with a nipple for their child. And all of these ideas that we project onto the identity. And then all of the ideas that we have, like I would have so many women come to One Taste and they would say, oh no, you don't understand. I can't take time for myself. I'm a mother. And so all of those expectations and demands, those are the identity. The activity itself is totally separate from that. So then when I talk about victim identity, what I'm saying is when you give somebody a victim identity, you're giving them suffering. You're taking away their actual intimacy with the experience that happened in their life. And that's what can bring someone to begin to heal, is to look at it and feel it and know it and learn from it and grow from it and honor it, not to have a whole bunch of prescriptions put on top of the experience that you had that was already tormented. So that's just my one thing I wanted to get in there for correction. So Jennifer Bonjean, Um, but so as I'm in the courtroom, there are very few people who um, this isn't everything. This isn't, not everybody aims to be the best in the world at clitoral stroking, but I did, and I am. And to me, it's like being a concert pianist or a violinist. There's 10 spots, 2 directions, 3 speeds, 3 pressures, and you're constantly playing those for the nuance of what you can sense in order to have perfect resonance at that most subtle level, in order to produce a perfectly stable and synchronized connection for a period of time, to have that level of attunement, and then to be able to have the capacity to regulate another human being's nervous system, and then to go on the ride together, and then to break through the sense of separation. That's what I wanted to know how to do. And so I'm very particular about who I consider a master, and I can tell you that I do with Jennifer. I'm just honored to be in her presence. I'm honored to watch her do what she does. When I'll whisper to the other, they aren't that interested in what I have to say in these moments, but I whisper to the other paralegals and such, like she's a soul whisperer. What she does with people on the stand is the expression of pure compassion, as far as I can tell. It looks like she's fighting, but to my mind, she's returning power and agency to human beings. It is absolutely stunning to watch. And then, though, I watch in the room, and I see like some of my adversaries are just adversaries, but there are some who I'm clear also organize their lives around freedom. And so we meet under the radar, and there's that place where you get to have that connection, that human connection that's underneath the identity that would tell you, with the expectations and demands, that you have to hate each other. Like, look, here I am. I'm the one who's going away, if any going away is happening, and I don't have any animosity toward you. Let's just make this as pleasurable as possible for everyone. And this life is difficult enough, and this room is difficult enough. This room is difficult enough for everyone. I mean, just remembering all of the ridiculous procedures would be, come on, I'm serious. Does anybody know what hearsay is? Objection, hearsay. You're like, which hearsay is it? What was the hearsay there? Anyway, I do that often. I have to, but Jennifer has to see. This is another one of Jennifer's gifts, is she can put her hand on my arm and Nicole, quiet. So I think I was going to just take any questions and things after I started. Oh, and then so everyone knows one taste, just as the ocean has one taste, the taste of salt, so does the taste of liberation, the taste of truth. That's what one taste was founded on. And the reason I like it's just beautiful expression. But the reason that I liked it was, I had a very rigid idea of what enlightenment looked like and where I would find it. And it was going to be in a celibate place. I would be wearing black robes in it, and I would only be eating vegetarian food, and I would be a saint of some kind, and there, I would be in the pristine halls and zendos, and I felt like if you entered those places, you were guaranteed the result. And then my vehicle veered in another direction. And what I discovered is it's everywhere. It's available wherever you are. In fact, that's the only place it's available. It's right here. There's nowhere else that it's available. And so then what I discovered is that there's an enlightenment potentially available for people who are extreme sports people, who don't just want it in silence, who many years ago, they started studying flow. And now flow is considered the holy grail of consciousness. It's what everyone aims to achieve. It's where, magic happens. And by magic, I mean the work that would take 40 hours can get done in an hour. An entire book can be written. When you hit that flow state, you aren't that you're free of the obstacles, right? So, but they discovered it in the most unlikely group of people. And this was my favorite part. It was skateboarders. And so all of these skateboarders had been, denigrated, and you guys couldn't make it to the Olympics if you tried, and you're the losers. Well, those losers are the ones who are actually achieving the higher states of consciousness. And the reason I love this is they found the same thing with sexuality. Working with sexual energies is actually the premier way to hit the states of consciousness that have the signatures of samadhi. You can do in 7 minutes, for example, with Om, what would take 30 years in a Tibetan practitioner. That's what Dr. Andrew found. But what happened for me is that I found things in the most unlikely places. I found them in the likely places too. I found beautiful experiences I went on pilgrimage with Drupal in Asia and Mongolia and Nepal, and I had experiences that I still try to describe. So they're in the places you would expect, but they're also in the places that you don't expect. And that's why I called it one taste. The only thing it has to have is the element of truth in order to get you there. And this was one of the other, so I knew that Buddhist expression. And then I read this book called One Taste after this by Ken Wilber. And I like how he describes this. The integral sage, the non-dual sage, is here to show us otherwise. Known generally as tantric, these sages insist on transcending life by living it. They insist on finding release by engagement, finding nirvana in the midst of samsara, finding total liberation by complete immersion. They enter with awareness the 9 rings of hell, for nowhere else are the 9 heavens found. Isn't that so pretty? Nothing is alien to them, for there is nothing that is not one taste. There's nothing that's not liberation. Indeed, the whole point is to be fully at home in the body and its desires, the mind and its ideas, the spirit and its light, to embrace them fully, evenly, simultaneously, since all are equally gestures of the one and only one taste. To inhabit lust and watch it play, to enter ideas and follow their brilliance, to be swallowed by spirit and awakened to the glory that time forgot to name. Body and mind and spirit all contained, equally contained in the ever-present awareness that grounds the entire display. So that's so pretty. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna do my thank you now, and then we have a period of time we can answer any questions or talk about anything anybody wants to talk about, like we used to do in the old days. They actually took a transcript from a Darshan in 2007, and you won't believe this, but I was saying the exact same shit back then. I wasn't getting in quite as much trouble for it, but I was still getting in a lot of trouble relative for where I was, and so I thought it'd be fun to kind of do the same thing today. But to all of the unlikely suspects who hopped on the caravan, who I'm on this caravan with. It is such an incredible honor, and what should we call it? The strange thrill, the unlikely thrill to be in the middle of such calamity and and really difficult. It is difficult, extraordinarily difficult experience, and then at the same time to have the kind of connection that you can only have in that kind of difficult experience. I know it's dual. Part of it is I'm proud and I'm Italian, and you really have to whittle me down to give it to receive at the level that I've had to receive at, you know. But then to realize that I get to be with these people like who send texts like, we're gonna win, you know, just like it has been incredible. So so there we go.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And thank you everybody for joining. We have some questions, some hands raised on Zoom.
Oh, one more, can I just say one more thing? So I say this, so Courtney is one of my editors. And I don't know if you guys can imagine, but it has not been an easy time to move things through. And you have to have a kind of raw determination. And so Teresa Diaz and I wanted to have this book completed. We imagined that it was going to be before trial, but and Courtney really was the one who moved it all the way through. Right now, I mean, we're number 2 on Amazon, and yeah, it's good, right? It's a beautiful disaster, this experience, where really incredible things are happening in tandem with the really difficult things. And then one of the things that Jennifer Bonjean often says when she's speaking is she'll say, that's life. That's just life. And I realize this is just life. It's just a much more extreme version of it. So go ahead.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
So thank you to you, and thank you to Teresa. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you to Teresa. Go ahead and raise your hand if you haven't. If you are on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, you can put it in the chat and someone will grab your question and get it to me. But we have some hands raised on Zoom, so we will start with Trinity.
Oh my God.
I think you're on mute.
Oh my God. I think that's an Omax. Is that?
Okay. Hi, Nicole.
We haven't seen each other since then.
Can she hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Nicole.
Go ahead. Yes.
Hi.
Where do I look? You can see me looking at you. There. Okay.
Oh, I can't. Can you see what behind me?
I can see.
But what I wanted to share, there was a moment in my life, and you remember it, when I was in a court and my worst case scenario being deported back to my country because I'm gay and essentially killed. So all the country was against me, proving that I'm lying and I'm like pimping women. What I was doing in the courtroom for 6 years is lasted. I was at the beginning of my own practice with you, and I was doing in the courtroom, realizing that this is just downstroke in my life.
I love you. I love you so much.
What you were teaching me, ability to expand container to hold sensations in the worst case scenario, realizing that this is a downstroke and it's all that comes after upstroke, and what's next? There will be upstroke. So I just wanted to share this with you and tell you that I love you and I understand where you are.
I love you so much. So much. Wow. Many years, many years.
Rachel Regan.
Hello, hello. Hello, love. It's so good to see you. Yeah. I really, really loved the part where you were talking about, I can't remember your words, but you said, I can't have my attention on you if it's on me, as in myself. And this whole period, that's been the biggest thing for me, that shift where my attention has come off myself and into the community and into the people and into those people that are coming towards us now and will be coming. And I wanted to say it's such a strange time and wild period, but I have never felt so relaxed inside of it, internally, relaxed and able to move and able to have my attention on other people. And that is, I see as a gift of Eros and through you.
Mm.
And I had one question as you were talking. I was just thinking, oh, that was the biggest thing that surprised me in this period. And I was wondering, what was the thing that surprised you the most? If it's these last 5 weeks or if it's just something recent, that was a question that I had.
That's good. I think my friend Amy, my American editor friend, because I have an Italian editor friend named Amy. My friend Amy said, "You can never know how you'll respond to the bullet." And you know, I've been in this for 7 years, and then indicted for 1.5 years. So I didn't know what would happen when I crossed the threshold with the first witness, and who I'd be. And so the fact that I could find flow, turn on, whatever you want to call it, inside of the experience after anticipating it for so long, not knowing, like, I didn't know. The weeks before, I could barely stay awake. The stress was so intense. And so I didn't know if I'd be able to stay awake in the courtroom. I had heard Trump had fallen asleep in the courtroom. So I didn't know if I'd be able to stay awake. And my stomach was bad. I was scared I'd throw up in front of everyone. I didn't know. And so the fact that I did a lot of practice, though, that all of the practice came through in the courtroom. That was number one. And then I would say number two, without question, has been the people who have shown up and how it has, I mean, like, I don't want to sound like, you know, a Hollywood person who's like, it has been amazing, but it has been genuinely people I wouldn't consider myself on the same aisle with, have shown up more passionately than, you know, family will say. Like, just my family's shown up beautifully because I'm an only child and only my mom's alive, but she's shown up amazingly. But to have total strangers show up and passionately text me on a daily basis in support, or these women who, Topeka brought all of these women who had been incarcerated, and the women kept coming. Like, they just come and sit in court and love me. And they say, we know what it's like. We know the experience. Or, yeah, that's been, I thought I would see the worst of humanity in this room, and I've gotten to see the best.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you.
Nancy?
Hi, Nicole. Hi from the Eros Monastery. Nancy from the land. In this period of time, I've been remembering that you said way back 13 years ago to me, what was your vow that you took and what you were saying about freedom. And so my vow was, I'll do whatever it takes to get free.
Right.
And it makes things very clear in terms of not getting caught in a lot of the things that are being shared. And so it's just like, you know, for freedom, you know, keep going. And, you know, where did I deny my own power and that those principles that we have? And and there's a lot of people showing up here as well to support at the monastery. And so I'm just so grateful for that. And yes, so thank you.
It's so good to see you. So good.
Becca?
See, Becca came to court from Utah.
I did.
See, unlikely suspects. This is my Mormon friend.
Yeah, and I almost turned around in Chicago when I found out that it was, about to end. I actually tried to see if I could. I'm just filled with so much love for you, Nicole. Just wanted to say that I am so really moved by how much you embody everything you teach. And I'm organized around freedom, and I don't, and I'm still, daily struggling to embody that. And I don't want to say struggling, but it's an adventure, to keep working, keep opening to that. But you've opened up such a new vista for me, and I love when you said that, to maintain the flow at a high altitude.
That's right.
And that's a beautiful way of saying what I've strived for, in my life. And I just feel so privileged to be able to be with you and experience and observe and feel the way you have operated from the high altitude, and the love that's just so present, and it gives me courage. So I just want to say thank you, and thank you, and I love you so much.
Thank you. Okay, maybe one more. We're going over the edge here.
We'll go to Lisa in the room.
And if there's anybody who knows, I like to give my.
When you were talking about the fine print, I've had many moments from my, I guess, almost 10 years now here of like seeing the fine print and getting really like victim-y and resentful and like want to blame anyone else for my choices but me. And yeah, so I really love what you said about that. And I don't think I've ever shared this with you, but when the article came out and I was facing my divorce, a lot of my yeses to my freedom and my involvement with orgasmic meditation was brought up in court. And I had two choices. I could either play the victim and try to play by the rules of the world to appear less threatening. But I knew if I did that, I'd have to live a lie the rest of my life. And so I decided to stand up inside of it. And I had my own Jen Bonjean, but she came from pro bono. Because at that time I was like, caravanning around the world. So like, I wasn't a nurse at that time and I didn't, so God came through for me in really beautiful ways. And I feel like empathy and compassion for these women on the stage, because I feel like they had to hit that place where they were either going to admit, yes, I was an adult and I made a choice and that was my choice. And it was the best time of my life. Or I have to believe a lie or try to convince myself of a lie and try to make everyone else wrong. But the rest of my life, I have to do that. And so I guess what I wanted to say was like, first of all, thank you, because had I not found this work before I was in my courtroom, I don't think I would have been able to continue to choose me and the truth of me in that place as a mom, and people saying as a mom that like, who are you and why would you? Like everything you said, like a mom, a nurse, a wife, like all of the places. And personally, this is Lisa speaking, I feel like those places are more like cult-ish, if we're going to be honest.
Oh my God. Just say it. Don't hold back.
You know what I mean? Like,
Don't fear saying
Yeah.
the controversial thing.
yeah. Like, let's just be honest, right? Like, I could be on the PTA line and like, really, that could be kind of culty. And I've done that. And I'm like, wow, I have to like really pretend to be a good mom to like fit in this group. You know what I mean? And like, definitely my sexuality can't be there, you know? And so I lived a double life as a wife for a long time. And this work healed me of years of childhood trauma, of everything that anyone was saying on that stage about, oh, these women were whatever. Like, I am those women. Like, anything you can say about my past, I could have used as an excuse. You know, the sexual molestation, the, you know, the alcoholic mother, the addict father, all the things. Like, I mean, and you know, Hemsy used to say like, I can out victim any victim in the room. Like, me too, girl. And so like, it's been, you know, I feel like it's weird to be in a place of like empathy and sympathy and compassion for women who are trying to take down something that like actually set me free.
What is that? There's a quote. We are the, oh, forgive me if I contradict myself. We are, huh? I am large, I contain multitudes. And when I was first going to court, this is prior to, you go to hearings, you go to endless hearings, you do endless motion. It's just endless. It's really endless. Like Sisyphus is like, girl, you got it harder than me. I mean, it is hard. And I remember though, I was imagining what this time was going to be like. And I woke up and Sicilians, I did some real Sicilian Catholic level prayer, and to all of the ancestors in my family, everything, all of the female ancestors. And I said, who do you want me to be in that room? And what I heard was, you contain the multitudes. Everybody in that room is you in some level. You know, women, we contradict ourselves. We are complex expressions, and it's all us. It's all of it, all us trying to face the experience of getting free. And each of us has our own idea of how to do it. And it's different, I think, from a masculine way, because we have to figure out how to harmonize all of these different ways. And you know, I'm of the firm belief that the feminine way is to love even the unlovable. So that is the practice. How can I love even the unlovable in here? And that's how I'll make it through. Because if not, I have to split myself. I have to split off the part of myself. You know, all of it's true. All of it. The experience of being a woman does have high intensity duress experiences and a genuine victim. It does have a genuine rescuer. It does have, all of these experiences are real and genuine. And so then how do we find each other in such a way that every woman feels held, heard, supported, cared for, so that she can let go whatever she's gripping to in order to maintain, you know, the crab in the barrel position of just trying to get ahead. Yeah.
Can I say one more thing?
One more.
And then I've also had the experience of like women coming to me after I've done so much work here and saying that they want everything that I have and that they're full adults. And I'm here for the ride and teach me everything. And how did you do all of that? And I want to do that too. And then somewhere along the way, they didn't get something that they wanted. And then they used everything that I shared of being completely naked and unafraid with them against me. And so I empathize and sympathize from that location, and that you didn't lose yourself and you're still standing up right here.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's, I mean, but it's not, and I didn't lose myself. That's my vow. And I would lose myself if I lost myself. If that makes sense. And, you know, the vow is to always be for everyone to the best of your ability. How do you do that? And I'll just say this one last quick thing, and then we'll do the Instagram. But I listened to this great teacher He was teaching what's called Yamantaka practice, yellow Yamantaka practice. And he was talking about the fact that he had built this house in India, and it was probably 3/4 of the way through. But they have zoning laws in India that if any of your neighbors are unhappy with it, then you have to stop. And so, at first he kind of was like, wait a minute, this isn't cool. I've put in this much money, this experience, and he had to stop before it was complete. And he said he couldn't let even a drop of anger enter his heart. He just had to keep moving, or it would destroy everything. Like at that velocity, a speck of dust will knock you out. It was like, okay, that's one of those lessons that you hold on to in here.
All right, we had about over 600 people join from online, so I'll read a few reflections from them. Kevin Porter says, I want to say that as a male, this has healed me as well. To let go of social identity and expectations was freeing, and I've been able to move forward in my freedom, sexuality, and discovery of pleasure, how to express it and seek it without requirements, starvation, control. I can be an integrated adult male.
Nice, beautiful.
Natalie on Instagram said, I wanted to say how glad I am to see you again this evening on my rainy sunset drive. Feels so profound and pristine hearing your teachings.
Thank you.
Lendl Pitts on YouTube says, you offer consistent inspiration to all of us. Thank you. And Angela Richardson,
Angela.
there are many people who aspire to be teachers, to be an example for others. You are someone who lives what she speaks. You share from the true place. For showing us all, yes, even there, freedom is possible. Thank you for letting us into your journey. It has me think about your prayer for every woman. You are so hardcore with your prayers, girl. I love you.
See, that's what happens when your good friend comes in the reflection stream. It's like, and you're the best. I love you. All right. We'll see each other again in one way or